Wonder Girl here. This video covers the installation of awning brackets, and it's a bit unique since the brackets came off of our van and are being installed onto another van, which does not have a pop-top. We feel this scenario actually provides for a better tutorial since we had to manipulate several things to make it all work and get a good fit. The brackets are already assembled, so we're starting with where to place the front bracket. Here's Wonder.
So the front bracket needs to be on the B-pillar. You don't have very much room in here to front and back.
Oh, by the way, these are used brackets.
Yes.
So that's why they don't look brand new. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
This bracket needs to go on the B-pillar, and it needs to be in a place that's allowing for the door to close, as well as for the rubber here to clear the bracket itself. So it's pretty tight where this is going to go. In terms of front and back. This is the first one you want to do.
Now how do you know it's tight?
Well, you can see the line of where the rubber goes on the metal.
So when you say tight, you're not talking about physical tightness, you're talking about where it's close to the joints?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And then I need to have this done in such a way that when this closes, it's just minimizing any interference with the door, and it's still tight up against the bottom of the gutter.
Because right now this bracket needs to be modified.
Just
because
a little tweak right here. I'm going to make
Can you
this.
bring the camera?
I'm going to make this angle a little bit tighter so that this sits a little bit flatter underneath the gutter.
And it is because of the way it's bent now that it's not giving the door clearance.
It's because the way it's bent, but also between each van is a little bit different in the way that the gutter is attached and its relationship in this angle between the gutter and the B-pillar. So if I'm flat against the B-pillar and I move it up, there's a gap.
Okay, so the camera can't show it, but you can feel the gap.
Yes, and if I put it flat up against the bottom of the gutter, then there's a gap down here where it's touching the B-pillar.
Okay, and then let's close the door to show how it's now physically tight.
Well, what you want to do is you want to have it so that it's as flat as possible to the plane of the closing door.
Okay, and right now it's
off of the B-pillar. If I have it flat up against the B-pillar and I close the door is going to rub right in there. I'm going to bend this out, towards me.
Okay.
So that this is a tighter angle in here. So I've got a couple of soft jaws here to protect the metal. I've got a little
very high
rod
tech
that I'm using as a arbor for the radius where the bend is happening. And then I'm going to just tap this down because I don't have another way of getting leverage on this spot here. I would want to bend that right there.
How do you know how much to bend it?
I have to eyeball it.
Okay.
It's not very much. The first thing I'm going to do is carve this out because I know I have to do that. So
Carve what out?
this little bit of putty that's on there.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So how do you know if you have to carve out putty?
Back here, this kind of gutter depth, which is about 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch, that's good. And as long as it's nice and pretty flat up against the lip of the gutter as it transitions from the horizontal up into the face of the lip of the gutter. If that's a sharp edge there, that's really good. If the putty is radiused and like where right in this area here where we're going to be putting the bracket, this needs to be carved out a little bit to make it more of a sharp angle between the horizontal and the vertical. Right here where you can look back here, you can see that this is horizontal and then it comes more vertical. But if we come over here, you can see how this putty is sloping and is kind of globbed in more against the lip of the gutter. So here it's more like this, but when we get here it's more like this.
Meaning
that this angle between this surface and the lip of the gutter is angled. It's like this.
Okay.
Back here it's more vertical. So as we come back, this is more vertical, more of a 90-degree. This actually has a little too much for the brackets. So to make sure the brackets have a good bite against the back surface back here, this needs to be carved out a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. And to do that, we're going to use
The handy
utility
dandy.
knife,
Oh, the shark knife.
shark knife, and a chisel. So a sharp chisel. So I need to go from there to about here.
Okay, and you are marking that based on the B-pillar positioning that we talked about before in terms
Right.
of where to...
And the width of the gutter,
Okay.
or the width of the bracket.
And you're, again, using the B-pillar as your reference point.
Right.
Okay.
So you can see right here,
Hold on, let
if
me
I
zoom
were
in.
to put the chisel, the
Hang on,
chisel
hold on, let me zoom in.
is
Sorry, people.
nice and vertical, but what
Hang on.
happens...
Hold on, baby. Okay, go ahead.
What happens when I get into this area here is there's a glob and it moves it inboard. So I'm just going to carve out a little bit of this putty here.
And you're just using a standard chisel?
Yeah, nice sharp wood chisel. This is soft.
And how do you know how much to carve out?
Well, in this case, the depth of the putty is fine. It's just the glob that's up against the back side of the
Oh, I see. So you're
gutter.
not doing it within the guts of the gutter. You're just doing that side rail.
In this case, right. This particular gutter doesn't have a problem with the depth of the putty. It just has a glob up against the back side of the lip of the gutter.
Is there any way to do that where your hand's not blocking the camera?
Try to do it from here.
And there's no uniformity on any vehicle or even down the gutter
No,
length.
I've seen some where it's completely filled up to the top of the gutter. There's no lip. So in those cases, you actually have to dig down and relieve some of this putty that's in the gutter.
Okay. And there it is.
Yep.
Perfect.
So that one's pretty close to where it needs to be. Not going to tighten it down all the way. Let's see how we got here.
Now,
That looks good.
in terms of
Alright.
tightening it down all the way, the camera can clearly see, and I'm going to point this out
Yep.
because I know there will be questions.
Yep.
So this area right here
That's
is
going to
not
happen.
making contact.
That is very typical of the front bracket. The front bracket, the Z, will typically be raised up in the back, and that's helping to bite down into that corner.
Oh, okay. So you want it to be like that.
You don't want it to, it can be flat. What you don't want is the back of this contacting the gutter first, because then that means that the front is raised up.
Say that again about contacting the gutter.
So this is fine, because what it means is that your point of contact and pressure and securing of the bracket is right here in this corner. That's what we want.
Okay.
If this was flat against here, but this is raised up, then we're losing leverage against the back side of the gutter and the underside of the gutter. So what we don't want is this going at an angle that's down, and you're not going to get that. That just doesn't happen with the brackets.
Okay. So in terms of the bending
Yep.
and knowing how much is right versus overbending, obviously if it's underbending, it would get caught in the door.
Right.
But
Well,
overbending,
overbent, or well, it can be overbent or underbent, can cause the interference with the door.
right, but what's the biggest determination that it's overbent if it actually is clearing the door? Or is it one and the same? If it's over or underbent, it won't fit underneath the door? Or can there be a scenario where it's overbent and affecting the contact points?
The door can interfere outside if it's bent too much, and it can interfere at the back if it's not bent enough.
Okay, so is there a
There's
bottom
no-
line rule of thumb for over or
No, you just have to-
underbending?
you just have to test it and see. And then when you open and close the door, you'll see whether or not it's clearing. It's going to be tight. all of them are going to be tight. That's all that you
But
have
not
in
rubbing.
there. It will likely rub. It's just you want to minimize any rubbing, and if you can get it to the point where it doesn't rub, that's great. But it all depends on how the door is mounted on the body. If the door is mounted where this is really tight, you may even have to get to a point where you lower this. You know, that's part of the
Lower the
issue.
door.
Lower the door on the hinges. Yeah. But I've never seen anybody that's had to do that.
So the rule of thumb here is bend the bracket first without taking the hinges off the door and moving the door.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
some
Don't want to do
people
it.
say
I've never seen anybody
done.
that's had to do that. Maybe if the vehicle was in an accident and everything kind of put back together, but it ended up having a close gap here, that might be a problem. But these brackets are the maximum thickness that we could make to allow for the typical clearance around the door.
All right, why don't you kind of tug on that a little bit? It's not tightened all the way down.
But it's tight.
Okay, so
You
it's
know,
got really
this will
good...
get a little bit more. I got to trim this off, but this will get a little bit tighter. But right now I need to put the other ones on,
Okay,
which are easier.
very
Because there's
good.
no bending involved typically.
Oh, great. All right. We've moved down the van to install the second and third brackets. So we're going to do the same thing in terms of testing the putty and the fit.
Right. So first thing I'm going to do is look at the putty. In this particular case, it looks good. I don't need to do anything. The depth is good.
So let's talk about
is
how do you
good.
know if the depth is good?
So I'm looking at this. I got about 1/8 of an inch of depth for where the clamp is going to contact the gutter putty versus this lip. If it's less, then what's going to happen is it's not going to have a bite, and the clamp is going to want to slip off of here.
So when you say less, you're referring to not less putty, more putty.
More putty,
Yeah,
less
because less depth.
Right. Okay.
And then what about the opposite? Is there a situation where there's not
it
enough
can-
putty? And then what do you
yes,
do?
there's situations like that either happen because there isn't enough putty, or somebody has started to remove the putty and they've removed too much. In that case, what they need to do
Ruh-roh.
what they need to do is get a piece of hard plastic and build it up with that piece of hard plastic. They can put something underneath it to help close this gap a little bit.
So the hard plastic is not malleable like the putty. It's just a spacer.
It's a spacer, right? A good example is strapping for piping that has those little holes in it. I've used that before because it's a hard plastic, and you can make a little flat piece that's the size of the bracket and put it in here to fill it
Okay.
up. Yeah.
All right.
So
So
this
the
one
moral
looks
on that
good.
one is just very carefully remove putty.
Yeah, just test your depths of the place where you can get to about
Is there-
1/8 to 3/16 of an inch deep.
Is there a situation where there would be too little putty, not due to too much
Removal?
scraping? Like, is there anything that
I've
would...
never really seen that from the factory. There's usually enough putty in there to clamp it on. So I've never seen a situation that is
Too little putty.
too little putty. Right.
Okay.
Okay. But there has to be something here, because there has to be some amount, because this has to have,
Can you lower it to the cat and bring it? Yeah.
this has to have some, this dimension in here cannot be down to where it's super thin. It can't be a piece of paper. I can't tighten this enough to have, where this is going to work if it's like a piece of paper thin. So there has to be some putty in there so that there's a thickness of the putty and the metal and the gutter from the bottom of the gutter to the top of the gutter.
Okay, and obviously
need
the
something in
brackets, it's flipped over now. You're showing the backside.
I'm showing the backside.
Yeah.
Right? So it goes on like this. Okay.
And where's the positioning of the second bracket?
Second bracket, what I like to do is leave just about, a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8
To
of
the
an
left
inch,
of the-
something like that. Right.
Of the joint point?
Right. You need I think this is a quarter inch Allen. No, 3/16 inch Allen. And a 1/2 inch socket, preferably a deep. If you have a pop top, then you're probably going to want to open the pop top, obviously, when you're doing all of this.
Going to want to?
Or
you have to.
You should, yeah. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough room because the pop top is going to be right back in here.
Right. Well, actually, for this video, this is good that it's not a pop top because it's very clear.
Much easier, right?
To see. But with the pop top on and with the pop topped a little bit, is it the same ease of access here, or is it a little bit more difficult?
With the pop top on?
Yeah.
It's a little more difficult.
But it's more difficult only in terms of access.
Yeah, but with the pop top is raised up to here, or all the way, if the pop top is raised up so that the canvas is in here, then you've got plenty of room to
right.
it.
But with the pop top up, does it matter in the sense of if you have it all the way up, does it make it easier, or not necessarily?
No, if it's all the way up, then it's fine because the canvas is usually back here someplace.
So it's easier if you have the top raised all the way up.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in a CCV top, you could just raise it up part of the way. You don't need to raise it all the way up.
And do these awning brackets
are either up or down? So.
Okay, so these brackets work with any Sportsmobile and CCV pop top.
And Pleasure Way. So one of the situations with these brackets is they can be reversed. You'll see in the instructions.
They can by accident, or they can on
purpose?
They
can be on purpose.
And again, these are used brackets, so that's why they're not in pristine condition.
So.
Why would you want to reverse them?
There's a little bit of a difference in the way that it bites on the gutter. So on this one, I'm going to just show it so we can see. It may be that the other way was the right way, and it was the right way, because you can see here that the way this is going to bite is not going to sit just the way it should be. If this is the other way, when it tightens down, it's not biting in the right way. It's gonna be easy to come off. So you can see that this piece wants to be up here. It has to be up here at the bottom of the gutter.
Okay.
It has to be there. It's got to leverage against that. And then the clamp has got to come down. You can see that in this case, as the clamp comes down, it can't come down deep enough. It's going to be off the top of the gutter. So there's a difference in the height where this hole is relative to the center of this hole, relative to this surface, and relative to this surface. So this one really wants to be like this, so that this hole is closer at the top.
Okay, if you can reverse that again, only because the camera's focal point moved. So that's what you don't want.
Right.
And
because
point out again
putting
why.
the hole at the bottom versus this is putting the hole at the top.
Okay, so I can see the difference on the camera. Let me just get the focal point there. Okay. Yep.
That's right.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Now I'm going to do a quick measurement on the awning, see if I can get this really tightly positioned so that I don't have to play with it later. Because this awning has already been installed one time and we already have holes, I'm getting an exact measurement of the holes so that I can set the brackets properly.
All right, we got the tape measure up here. We're burning off 10 inches, but we're measuring from the center point of the hole, the first bracket.
Okay, let me just see. I'm going to pull it this way. All right.
And why are you pulling it that way?
Because I'm lining up the hole, which is 63 3/4 here, and our 10 would be way back. So we'll end up drilling a hole in that case to reposition.
So 3/4 off.
Yeah, it's not enough. It's more than I wanted. You're not going to be able to move that bracket that much. So.
Okay, so let's just review what happened here. That this front bracket cannot be moved out of its position to the B pillar.
Not enough to adjust for matching, so we'll end up drilling one new hole.
Into the casing of the awning, not the vehicle.
in the casing of the awning, right. Okay, so this one will be positioned where it is, just a little bit. There's clearance. This will work for either a slider door or for a barn door like this. It also does not, because the windows are recessed and the leverage is against this surface up here, it doesn't touch the window, so we're good there.
So what, I mean, there wouldn't be a window in that joint point. So
in a cargo van, there wouldn't be a window right here.
But I'm just saying there would never be a window that would be in a place of interference.
No, not here, exactly. It would have to be an aftermarket window. Okay.
So this second one is completed.
Second one is completed. So if you're doing a brand new installation, what you're going to do is pull the tape from the front edge of the front bracket.
Front edges, so you're not going to do it on center with the hole?
Well, because this is brand new. We haven't
drilled
these holes yet.
Okay.
And you're going to want this bracket to be mounted at around 8 feet.
For a brand new installation, and we mean specifically for a Fiamma F45 10-foot awning, determine the placement of the rear bracket by putting the tape measure on the front edge of the front bracket, not the hole on center, but the front edge of the front bracket, and pull the tape towards the rear of the van and measure out about 8 feet 2 inches. This distance is where the rear edge of the rear bracket needs to be placed. This enables the awning to be placed in a way that protects the side door from rain, etc. when the awning is open. So let's head back to the vise to make a few more bending adjustments for the bracket's vertical alignment. All right, we got this positioned, and you have a pipe wrench in here to bend.
It's not a pipe wrench, it's a mechanics wrench.
Oh, mechanics wrench,
yes.
Okay.
And the cool thing about the mechanics wrench is it has parallel jaws. I can squeeze it down with a couple of soft pieces of wood here, and I can use the handle of the pipe wrench to get my bend where I want it. Okay? So I'm bending right down in that one radius. I'm not trying to leverage off of here, which could then bend this vertical piece.
What if a person doesn't have a mechanics wrench?
Well, there's other ways to do it, but it's going to be more difficult.
So you bent it already?
I did.
So let's take a look at how you have this positioned in there. You spent quite a bit of time fiddling to get it in the right position. What are you looking for?
I'm looking to clamp it around an area that where I want the bend, the radius that I want the bend to occur.
And you had to get it in a way where it provided
support on the bracket in this area here, so that it was clamping this one surface so that I could bend here, because this is really thin. This is not thin. It's a narrow area to try and bend around. We're just doing a test fit.
And what are you looking for?
I'm looking down the brackets to see how all three of them are aligning. And it's close, but I'm just going to tweak this one a little bit more. So I'll be at the vise, and then I'll be right back.
So just for clarification, the base mounting area is fine. What we're tweaking is the angle of
this vertical relative to the other two brackets.
Now what if the other ones were out of line? Then you have to do the same thing?
You could do that with the other ones, sure.
So is there one that's more important to use as a reference point?
No, the front one and the rear ones are the ones that are the most important.
And how do you know which one is the correct one?
Just the amount of vertical, how vertical it is.
And you want it to be vertical?
You want it to be vertical. Well, you want it to be close to vertical, but again, if you have a PopTop, you can't have it vertical because the PopTop needs to come down and not hit the top of the brackets or the awning.
So with the PopTop installation then, is it best to put 2 on or even 1 on? And ooh, you're putting quite a bit of torque on there.
Yep.
1 or 2 brackets on, lower the awning, lower the PopTop, and then come back to determine which is the best angle of the ones that you have installed?
Yeah, you could do that. So now I'm looking down the 3 brackets. Everything's in alignment. It looks good. We've got some verticalness here. We were just having a little conversation about the verticalness if you have a PopTop. If you have a CCV top, the CCV top will come almost all the way out to the edge of this gutter. And when it's coming down, if this bracket is too far in, the pop top will catch this lip, the top of the gutter or the top of the awning. A Sportsmobile top might do the same thing, a little less likely. So on a CCV top, you might have to bend these out so that as the top comes down, it's coming down the back side of the bracket and it's not snagging on here.
That's with any pop top, or as you said?
Primarily CCV and possibly on a Sportsmobile top. It just depends on which Sportsmobile top.
So how is the Sportsmobile top different than the CCV clearance?
The Sportsmobile top is normally, a lot of the Sportsmobile tops are narrower. When they rest on the roof, they rest over here versus out here. But some Sportsmobile tops actually rest out here. Okay, so it's not an absolute.
So we talked about in our little side conversation, when installing the 3 brackets, at what point should one do a test to determine what is the correct angle after installing the first 2, installing 1, because obviously there's a reference point.
Sure.
To
and
line
the
them
problem
all up.
you're going to have on any of the tops is the rear 2 brackets. The front bracket is typically going to clear, especially on a Sportsmobile top, because the Sportsmobile pop top doesn't go all the way to the windshield. The Colorado camper van top does go all the way to the windshield. But still, because of the way the tops curve in, you don't have an issue with the front bracket, not typically. The bracket, the middle bracket and the rear bracket are the ones that you're going to see the potential for snagging.
So which of the 2 between the middle and the rear should be used as the reference point for bending?
You have to use them both.
Okay, and with the pop top, you need to bend, lower the top to see the clearance.
Yes, you have to bring it down carefully.
Bending.
Right, yeah, you have to bring it down carefully to see whether or not there's any interference with the bracket.
Now with the, so with the Sportsmobile top, it's a all or none. It pops in and out. CCV, you can lower it.
Yeah, but I mean, even a Sportsmobile top, you can lower and
you just have to have somebody lower and hold.
Yeah, you'll see whether it's gonna, be a problem. Go with 10 inches.
We're at 108 and an eighth. Oh, 103?
103 and an eighth.
That's on center of the hole.
That's on the center of the hole. Okay. Bueno.
All right, so now we are in the right position. We can tighten this down.
Yep.
And do the other ones need to have a final tightening?
All of them have to be snugged down, especially after they've been sitting there for a little bit, because the putty can compress. The guideline is once you've installed it, you want to check it, and you want to come back after a couple of you're just checking to see how tight this is, that it's not wiggling. The gutter is going to wiggle because it's just, that's what it does. It's going to do that. But the bracket itself relative to the gutter is what you want to feel. Is there any play between the bracket and the gutter? Okay, is this wiggling against the gutter, or is it wiggling with the gutter?
You want it to wiggle with the gutter.
With the gutter. That means that this is clamped. You come back after a couple 100 miles and you check this, because the putty itself could depress, and that'll cause this to loosen up potentially. So you want to double check that.
Okay, so if the putty has depressed, by further tightening this down, do you have to release it and then re-snug it, or?
No, you just need to tighten this down, and it will take more clamping it'll make more clamping against the putty. After the first 200 miles,
okay,
you want to double check it and tighten it again.
Okay.
Snug it up. Then, before you're going on a journey, just wiggle the awning and see if there's any play. You don't need to tighten anything at that point unless you feel some play. After a couple of times maybe, or 3 times, this should be good. Our van has done probably 15,000 miles, including a bunch of washboard and off-road, and I've never had to snug it up again.
But we've checked it.
Check it, yes,
Yes,
absolutely. Go
absolutely.
up and check to see if the awning is solid and that something hasn't caused it to, you know, to become a little bit loose.
What are you doing?
I'm just checking to see how this is sitting in here to, you know, see if we have any issues. So,
And what are you looking for?
just looking for this gap. I'm looking at how the door closes relative to this, how this door closes relative to this.
So actually, if you can talk about that gap again. I couldn't get in the camera angle before.
So we're looking at the relationship between the B pillar and the bottom of the gutter, this angle right here.
Okay, so I see the gap. Hopefully
Right.
the camera can pick it up.
Yep. So this, we'll see about the door. It's possible this could go up a little bit more, but I'm just going to check the door right now and see how it's handling it.
Got a little bit of rub or not?
Yeah, a little bit of rub. So I'm going to pull this one off. I'm going to do a little bend, and we'll have to do the measurement one more time.
But you were saying that over time?
Yeah, this could change because the vans themselves flex. The body flexes, especially a four-wheel drive van that's going off-road. You know, there's movement in the body and the doors and frame and all that kind of thing. So
That's a good point,
Yep.
because this is a dynamic
situation. Yeah.
process.
Yep.
So it's not only imperative to check for tightness, but also for clearances.
There we go.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yep.
That's the spot.
Yep. And is that down? Want to make sure that it's
Yeah, that's true.
in the hook. You good?
Yep, looks like it's all the way in.
Okay. I'm putting a little screw that holds the awning to the brackets and keeps it from popping off the top. So this holds it from pivoting out, and it holds, that's all that this is doing, is holding it from pivoting out. All the load is carried on the top of the bracket.
This one, however, the middle bracket, is a little bit off. So the hole in the casing needs to be re-drilled. This third one is perfect. Using a 5/32 drill bit.
Once you get the first hole in, there it is. We could have put the screw head from this side versus the other side, you know, because the nut, what we want is a smooth surface on the outside of this, so with PopTops that the PopTop comes down and has smooth surfaces or button heads to guide over. Much nicer. These are the screws that come with the Fiamma awning. These little ones.
Oh, they do come with the Fiamma awning.
Yeah, it's like the only thing you use out of the mounting kit.
The Fiamma.
These three little screws and nuts.
And the final thing we need to do before we run out of battery, a la True Lies, is to shake the awning at the bracket points. Make sure everything's good. Looking good. Door clearance.
Yep.
It's a beautiful thing. Thanks for watching. We hope you found this video helpful and a nice complement to the written instructions. Have fun installing the brackets. Catch you next time. Yowzers!